Hi guys, Alex here with Pattern for Pirates. Today I wanted to show you another way to gather your skirt or maybe make some ruffles. So this method that I'm showing you in this particular video is what I like to call like the dental floss or the yarn method. So as usual, I've sewn my skirt or your ruffle pieces at the side seam. You have a loop right now. Grab a piece of yarn, not too thick yarn and not too fluffy yarn. Like the thinner the yarn you have, the better will be. I just grabbed the first one I saw. It will work, but if you have yarn that's even thinner, it's gonna be even better. Less chances of you catching it when you sew it. When you zigzag over it. So dental floss also works very good. Make sure that the piece of yarn that you cut, it's about 3 inches maybe longer than the circumference of the loop that you're sewing, in my case a skirt. So mine is definitely longer. It's important that it is not shorter. Even if it's an inch or two longer, it's fine, as long as it's longer than this. So what you need to do then is set your sewing machine to a zigzag stitch, the widest possible option that your machine gives you. In my case, it will be a 7 millimeter width and the length of 4 millimeters. I like to have my tension around 2.8. It doesn't really make much of a difference. Just don't be at your regular tension. Lower it a little bit and put the zigzag stitch as wide and as long as your machine allows it. So what we're gonna do next is, let me see if I can grab this. Okay, so we're going to be zigzag stitching over the yarn without, of course, catching it. That's why I said to use the longest stitch possible and the longest width possible. It minimizes the chances of you catching the yarn, because if you do sew your yarn into the skirt, then you won't be able to pull through it. So make sure, just a reminder, as always, mark the center of your skirt or ruffles to match the bodice or wherever you're adding it to. In my case, I have like a purple dot right here that it shows me this is the center of the front. Make sure you mark that prior. So with your right side up, place your yarn about 3/8 of an inch away from the edge of the fabric. I like to start at the side seam, and now you're basically going to be zigzagging over the yarn without stitching it. So I'm gonna do that very slowly. I'm not a very slow seamstress. Like, I like to sew very fast, and this for me it's the hardest part of this method, going very slow over that, but it is feasible. You can do it. Let me just make sure my machine will stop me. That's my way of sewing slower. I have to make my machine make me so slow. And you will be doing this all around your skirt, making sure you don't catch. Nothing is gathering right now. We're just basically sewing a yarn piece over your skirt. As close to the edge as possible. Also, because we're doing pretty low tension, it also minimizes the chance of you stretching your knit. But while you're guiding your cord your yarn through. See if you need to move it a little bit. Make sure you do that before you catch it. While you're guiding your yarn through, make sure you don't stretch your skirt. This method works for both knits and wovens. With woven, obviously you won't have any stretching, but with knits, if you pull on your skirt, you might, so don't do that. Okay, we're halfway there. This for me is the hardest part of this method, making sure that you sew without catching the yarn, sewing right over it. That's why I was saying the thinner the yarn or the floss or the string, the better, because it minimizes the chances of you actually catching it in your zigzag stitch. Okay, we're almost there, and then you'll see how super easy it is to gather your skirt. Almost there. Because I'm using yarn, if it happened that I catch it, like a little bit of it, it's easy to just snip that part, not snip my thread, but snip the yarn. But if you're using dental floss, it's gonna be much easier. Dental floss also glides very well when you pull the strings together, and being that it's so thin, it minimizes the chances of you catching it. Alright, so we are at the end. Do not overlap your seams. And I'm not going to backstitch because usually backstitching tends to catch the yarn. So I'm just gonna cut my threads, and there you go. You have your yarn zigzagged over. I don't know how well you can see it. I'm trying to see if I can move you here. Your yarn stitched over. There you go. I've used the blue thread so you can see it. There you go. So now all you have to do is just grab your two pieces of thread that you have on this side and just pull on them, and by pulling on them it's gonna gather the skirt like you would do when you have one of those backpacks at the top. You just pull your thread through and make sure you gather it so it matches the opening of the bodice you want to attach it to, or the sleeves if it's ruffles, or if it's sleeve ruffles. Also very important is that you try to gather as uniform as possible. That's where having your center seams marked helps, because this way you can see that you've gathered. There you go. Super easy. I've gathered by just pulling my, and see how much yarn I have now on this side. And now I'm gonna just lay down the bodice that I'm using. And make sure that, since I think I gathered it a little too much. There you go. So now I'm gonna attach the skirt to the bodice, right sides together, matching the centers and the side seams, and then just arrange my my gathers to make sure they're even. It's not more gathered on one side than it is on the other one. So what you'll be doing next is sewing your seams, your bodice to the skirt with a 1/2 inch seam allowance, and that will get rid of the yarn. So once you sew it with a 1/2 inch seam allowance, your seam will be, let's see, your seam will be right here. So it will be under the yarn, which means once you're done sewing, attaching the skirt to the bodice, you will just be pulling your yarn out on one side, and that's it. Your yarn doesn't stay in the skirt. It was just there, or your floss. It was just there to help you gather the skirt. Once you pull it out, you top stitch it, and you're all good to go. That was another easy method of gathering for skirts or ruffles. Hope you enjoyed this method, and I look forward to seeing all your projects done. Bye!